Every court case rises and falls on one question: who saw it happen? Eyewitness testimony has convicted murderers, has freed the innocent, has changed the course of nations, and has rewritten history. But the resurrection of Jesus presents something almost unprecedented. The claim was never based on one person's private vision or one individual's mystical experience. Instead, the early Christians proclaimed that hundreds of people saw Jesus alive after his crucifixion. If that claim is true, everything changes. If it's false, Christianity collapses. So let us examine the eyewitnesses one by one. The first witnesses surprised almost everybody. It wasn't Peter, it wasn't John, it wasn't one of the religious leaders. It was Mary Magdalene. In the first century Jewish society, a woman's testimony carried very little legal weight, much less than men's. And if the gospel was an invention, to be a convincing story, why would they make up this extraordinary mistake? Why not make Peter or James or John the first witnesses? Because historians recognize something important. Embarrassing details are rarely invented. The gospel consistently reports that women were the first to discover the tomb. That is exactly the sort of detail that we would expect from someone not trying to commit a lie, but someone trying to communicate the truth. Mary arrived at the tomb to find there was no body. She entered an empty tomb, and then she met the risen Christ. Her grief turned into astonishment. Her despair became hope. She ran and told the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." Only days before the crucifixion, Peter denies even knowing Jesus 3 times. Fear had conquered his courage. The bold fisherman became a frightened man hiding behind locked doors. Then something amazing happened. Within weeks, Peter stood publicly in Jerusalem, the very city where Jesus had been crucified, and boldly declared that Jesus is God and has risen up, and he is a witness. What explains this dramatic transformation? People may die for something that they mistakenly believe to be true, but people are not willing to die and suffer persecution for something that they know they invented. Peter insisted until the end of his life that he had seen the risen Christ. John tells us that the disciples hid behind locked doors. They were terrified. Their master had just been crucified for all the world to see. Perhaps they were next. Then everything changes. Jesus appeared amongst them. He showed them his hands and his feet and his side. He ate with them. He spoke with them. He taught them for 40 days. This was no fleeting glimpse, no passing shadow, no mysterious apparition. According to the New Testament, the men spent weeks with the risen Christ. Thomas became famous for one reason. He was doubting Thomas. He refused to believe merely because others told him that it was true. "Unless I see, unless I touch, I will not believe," he declared. Thomas represents countless critics. He demanded evidence. And according to John's Gospel, Jesus invited Thomas to examine his wounds. Thomas responded with one of the greatest confessions in Scripture: "My Lord and my God." The doubter became a worshiper. Perhaps the most surprising witness of all is James. The New Testament tells us that during Jesus' early ministry, even his own brothers did not believe in him. Imagine growing up with Jesus. Imagine hearing your brother claim to be the Messiah, the Son of God. Would you believe? James didn't. Yet only a few years later, James became the leader of the church in Jerusalem. He willingly suffered martyrdom because he proclaimed Jesus to be the risen Lord, according to non-Christian Jewish historian Cephas. Now, what changed? Paul gives one simple answer. After that, he was seen by James. Now we arrive at one of history's most remarkable claims. Paul writes that Jesus appeared to above 500 brethren at once. Then Paul adds something extraordinary, of whom the greater part remains unto the present. Do not miss what Paul is saying here. What he is effectively telling the reader is many of these eyewitnesses are still alive right now. Go and ask them. No ancient historians writes this way unless he expects the readers to actually go out and verify his claim. 500 people cannot experience the same detailed hallucination simultaneously. Mass hallucination never happens. The sheer number of witnesses demand an explanation. Our final witness may be the most compelling of all, Saul of Tarsus. He hated Christianity. He imprisoned believers. He approved of execution of faithful preachers of the word. He was the last person anyone would expect to become a follower of Jesus. Yet everything changed on the road to Damascus for Saul of Tarsus. The persecutor became the preacher. The enemy became the missionary. The man who once sought to destroy Christianity spent the rest of his life proclaiming the risen Christ. He endured beatings, shipwrecks, imprisonments, scorning, but ultimately martyrdom. Why? Because he was actually convinced he was an eyewitness of the risen Jesus. Now, drawing this thread together, think about the diversity of these witnesses. A grieving woman, a broken fisherman, a group of frightened disciples, a hardened skeptic, a skeptical brother, more than 500 individual people, a violent persecutor. Different personalities, different backgrounds in different locations, yet all proclaim the same central truth. Jesus was dead, Jesus was buried, Jesus appeared alive again. The historians left that multiple attestation of independent witnesses converging on the same event proves the resurrection. Yet one more question remains. Eyewitnesses are important, but what about the tomb itself? If Jesus truly rose from the dead, why couldn't the Jewish leaders simply produce the body? Why didn't Rome display his corpse on the open streets of Jerusalem for all to see? The answer to this question brings us to one of the strongest pieces of historical evidence of the resurrection: the empty tomb itself.